we discovered that we had different definitions of what a life partner meant. And Pam's definition of life partner was it's a partner for the rest of your life. And that would be what most people would think. In my mind, it was you were a partner in every aspect of life without having a duration to it. I figured, hey, between us, we've been married 7 times. We know that relationships don't last forever, So I didn't think in terms of for the rest of our lives, to death do us part. So I thought we'd share everything rather than put a duration. Well, we went back and forth on that and spoke to a counselor about it and all that, and I think we ended up compromising by saying we're going to be life partners in everything we do for the rest of our life.
Welcome to Normalizing Non-Monogamy, the podcast where we interview incredible people from across the entire spectrum of non-monogamy to hear their fascinating stories. We strive to bring guests on the show who have a healthy approach to non-monogamy. However, it's important to remember that everyone does it a little bit differently, and the views and opinions expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect our own.
Additionally, we produce this show for entertainment purposes only. Please be aware that we aren't doctors or therapists. Consult the medical professional for anything regarding your health that you might learn about on the show. Enjoy!
Welcome to episode 232. We're Finn and Emma, and today we have a super fun interview with Jim and Pam.
I thought you were going to say, we're Pam and Jim. But
No, we're not Pam and Jim.
We're Finn and Emma.
We're talking to Pam and Jim.
We are. And this is an amazing conversation. We don't want to spoil too much, but as you'll find out, Jim is 83, Pam is 69. They started exploring non-monogamy a few years ago. And actually, Jim started exploring his sexuality just a few years ago as well. And so he and they go into just some amazing conversations about this experience together, their journey together, and how they do life together now.
Yes. And a quick note, they mentioned SLS in the interview, and that is Swing Lifestyle. It's a swinging website.
Yeah. We just didn't want anyone to be confused. So that is Pam and Jim. We are super excited for this. But before we jump in, we do have a couple of very quick announcements, some exciting events coming up this week, actually, as well as a huge thank you and a huge shout out to our Patreon community, of which Pam and Jim have been longtime members.
Yes.
Since they were teenagers.
Well, it'd be kind of hard since it hasn't been around that long.
I made that part up. But Pam and Jim are part of the community, and they're amazing. And so, yeah, we've actually met them a few times in person.
Yes.
Anyway, I will stop gushing over how awesome Pam and Jim are. If you're interested in community, check out our Patreon community. It is a fantastic place to meet other like-minded people and get support. We have an ongoing MeWe chat group. We do monthly video Q&A calls, and we have a men's group and a women's group, which both of those groups are open to people who are non-binary and or have transitioned as well. So if you're looking for community, check it out. Head to our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com. Click on the Patreon tab, and you will get all of the information there, and we'll see you there.
We also have some upcoming virtual events that we're excited about. This coming Friday, that's April 22nd, we have a virtual trivia night. And Saturday, April 23rd, we have a virtual meet and greet. These are open to anyone. You just must be respectful and open-minded. Go to our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com. Click on the community events tab to find out more. We also have in-person event coming up in New Orleans on September 17th. More information will be discussed in the outro on that event.
Yeah, we're super excited for that, and we'll give you all the gooey details in the outro. The last thing we wanted to mention while we've got your attention here is our favorite affiliate partner, stdcheck.com. We use this service. Emma and I use this service. We've been using this service for years to get tested for STIs. We use it. We love it. And we've gotten a ton of feedback from others that they love it as well. It is fast. It is easy, and it is pretty affordable at about $130 for a 10-panel test when you use the links on our website, and you save $10. And it supports the show financially, and so we are extremely grateful to you for doing that.
Yes.
So thank you in advance for using the links, for getting tested for STIs, and for knowing your sexual health status.
Yes. And for listening to these announcements.
Absolutely. So to find more information about that, just head to our website or in the podcast show notes. Click on the links for the resources, or if you go to normalizingnonmonogamy.com/test, all of the information is there as well. If you can't find the links, send us an email. You can send us an email about anything.
Reach out to us. Let us know if you want to come on the show. If you have any comments or questions, just let us know.
And that can be done on our website on the Contact Us page.
Yes.
And with that, let's go talk to Pam and Jim. We will see everybody on the other side.
Buckle up and have fun.
Buckle up. But if you're nudists like Pam and Jim, be careful what you're buckling. You don't want to catch anything in the seatbelt.
It's true. It's true.
All right.
Let's go. Welcome, Pam and Jim, to the show. We're so excited to finally talk to you. And I know it's been...
Well, we've talked to them before.
Okay, on the podcast. We're excited to talk to you on the podcast. I should clarify. We
long time Patreon members, so we're super excited to get your story out there.
Yes. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for asking us.
Yeah, of course. Well, because not everybody knows who Pam and Jim are. Not everybody comes to every meet and greet and meets and greets you. But do you mind introducing yourselves so people have an idea of who Pam and Jim are?
Okay, I'm Pam. We're both nudists and live full-time in a nudist community. I'm 69 years old, one of your older people you've interviewed, and he'll top that soon. A minute here. And do you want to know background? I mean,
whatever you're comfortable sharing.
Yeah.
Well, I've actually been married and divorced 3 times, and then my 4th husband passed away. So Jim is my 5th big relationship, and we're not going to get married.
Yeah. Fair enough. 3 is enough.
Yeah.
Well, for you, maybe not for Jimmy.
I'm Jim, and I live with Pam in the nudist resort. I also have my own home in an adjacent nudist resort, but spend most of my time with Pam in her resort. I moved down here 3.5 years ago. I'm originally from Chicago, where I practiced law and retired, and then headed to Kentucky and Tennessee. I got married and was living in Kentucky and Tennessee for 16, 18 years, and then decided to become a full-time nudist and move down to Florida, where you can be nudist outdoors all year round. And so Pam and I, we met in March 19th of 2019.
March 22 of 2019.
Okay, March 22. But anyway, it was a chance meeting because we were introduced on a blind date. And Pam will tell you how the blind date came about.
Well,
Sure. Yeah, we'd love to know, how did Pam and Jim become Pam and Jim?
The person who I was receiving stretches from every month and lived 5 doors down from where Jim had recently moved in. And so she told me, you need to meet him, you need to meet him, you need to meet him. And finally she called me and gave me his number and said, will you call? And I did. And it was 8 days before I was leaving town for 3 months.
Ooh.
No.
But you stuck around?
No. I had grandchildren I was going to see.
Yeah. And I knew this the day that I met Pam. We went out to dinner on our first date, and I disgorged everything about myself and what I was seeking in life and in relationships and things like that. And we were pretty sure that we were going to be an item right from day one, from that very first date. And then she says, well, I'm leaving town in 8 days and won't be back for 3 months. 3 months. So then
So wait, the first day he said he told me a lot, but I mean, this is important. He says he's gone to orgies recently. He's just started doing that. And I'm, processing this and going, okay, well, I think I might be able to do that. And I don't think you had been swinging yet, but he wanted a partner to swing. And we had both brief, tiny, a couple months type activity in a prior marriage. So I said, I think I might, be able to do that. and he already had both a male and a female, like poly partner. And I wrapped my brain around that one. So, like it was all brand new, but yet it felt like it was okay.
Yeah. And so you, Pam, said you had explored swinging a little bit previously with one of your husbands.
Yeah, maybe we should back up a little bit and just get a little bit of background, and then we'll come back to Pam and Jim.
Yeah, that was literally just like a couple. This was back before the internet existed, and we had to go through the Ohio connection and mail information back and forth to each other. So it was very cumbersome and very, hard to that just getting somebody was a challenge. And then our hookup didn't really go that well. So we did not keep pursuing it.
Gotcha.
Okay. So that was really your only experience with anything non-monogamous until you met Jim.
Well, I actually forgot now that you're saying that. Between marriage 1 and 2, I was with somebody that he was a man. I had one 3-way with another man and one 3-way with another woman. Okay. And they were both like one and done. They both went well, but we didn't last very long as a couple.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So you weren't completely new to non-monogamy, but you didn't have a lot of experience either.
Exactly.
And I was in a similar situation before I met Pam. I've been married 3 times. The first 2 ended in divorce, and the third one, my wife passed in 2016. But my first wife and I, when we were living in the Detroit, Michigan area in the early 1970s, and we became good friends through a common hobby that we had with another couple. They were an older couple. They were probably 20 years older than we were at that time, and we were in our early 30s. And we wasn't called swinging then; it was wife swapping. And we'd have dates where his wife would come to my house, and Pam would go to his boat, which is in the harbor. And Pam, no, that was.
Your first wife.
Yeah, we don't need names anyway. But she would go with him to his boat in the harbor and in the Detroit River. But anyway, it only lasted for about a month because although I was enjoying myself, my wife at that time was not enjoying herself because I guess the fella had ED. And she was just frustrated as hell. And so she asked me to call it off too. So we did after about a month of being together, maybe once a week. So that was very limited and never went back to that in subsequent marriages. I was pretty monogamous and
you never told him how old you were.
Oh, I'm 83.
Yeah.
Probably your oldest interviewee.
Born in 1938.
I think probably.
I believe so.
Yeah.
I believe so. Well, and Pam just didn't want to be the oldest, so she made sure to make you go as well. So I love it. Well, so when you met Pam, you rolled out a lot on that first date. So you had clearly started exploring some type of non-monogamy before you met Pam. How did you come into that, Jim?
Well, I came into it because I live in a nudist resort, and I would spend time in the hot tub, and you meet people in the hot tub, and you meet people on Swing Lifestyle, and you meet on other websites. And I met a gal, and we agreed to meet in the hot tub, and we got to talking, and son of a gun, we went to my place and we played, but it was just a sexual date. But she put me on to an orgy party that she would go to twice a month, and she says you would really enjoy this, and so she got me involved in that, and I did start going probably a month or two to these twice a month orgies in hotel suite orgies before I met Pam. And I also, and one of the gals I met at the orgies I became very close to, and she was my female poly partner, so to speak, because she would come and visit me, and I would go visit her. She lived in Orlando, so it was a 2-hour drive away.
Sure.
And I also, during that time, met a fella on SLS, or one of the connection websites, and we got connected as male bonding friends, and which got into sexual play as well. And he died last April. So my other poly partner went a different direction last October. So I'm without a poly partner right now. I'm looking, seeking, but
without one besides Pam.
Right.
Well, yeah. Other than Pam's my nesting poly, but I'm thinking, right.
Yeah. I got you.
Well, I mean, we're poly, but we really don't have other poly partners right now. So
right,
it's okay.
Right.
You're still allowed to be polyamorous. Yeah. We allow it.
Well, so technically, I am not poly. I consider us monopoly.
Okay.
When we first got together, like when I came back in after the 3 months in Cincinnati, Jim encouraged me to meet others. And so I actually put myself out there on a dating site, and I did get together with, I think, 3 or 4 different guys. And it just wasn't something, I was more doing it for him than I was doing it for me.
Sure.
So after a while of trying it out and testing it out, I just took myself off the site and was perfectly happy that he had his other 2 people. But I really didn't want to look for anyone.
Sure. Mm-hmm. And did you had said potentially you were interested in going to the orgies and the swinging parties. Is that something you ended up pursuing together?
Oh, we went, the kids, actually, my grandchildren came back with me in June, after having left him for 3 months. Jim came up 3 times while I was there, and actually helped drive us down the final trip. But my grandchildren stayed with a friend overnight so I could go to one of the orgies with him.
Was that your first orgy?
That was my first orgy. Yep, it was.
All right, so now we've got to ask. What were you thinking going to your first orgy? Like, what was your mindset going into that? And like, how did it go? Like, you don't have to give us all the details, but just like generally, like, how was it? Because that's a big experience.
I was very nervous, but excited. And I asked him for 2 understandings. One, if we got there and I freaked, like he would be willing to go somewhere and talk to me and figure out what needed to happen. And that he would not leave my side until I told him it was okay.
Yeah.
So we get there, and the setup of this place is there's about a half an hour, like just meet and greet time. And one of the couples that was there got into a conversation with me. Everybody's really friendly. And it turned out that we didn't know it, but Jim was with his partner across the room. And he just helped me get comfortable. And there was a guy that Jim had told about me, and he told me about him. So when after the meet and greet, then you have a little talk. Everybody says who they are and introduces themselves. And then she goes, okay, the party's on. And this other guy kind of lifted his eyebrows at me. And I looked at Jim and I said, bye. and the party was
on. Amazing. So it went well. It sounds like it went well.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And we kept going back. There were twice before COVID. There were 2 parties a month, one in Tampa and one in Orlando 2 weeks later. So every 2 weeks there was a party, and we were going to both Tampa and Orlando parties. So we got quite active in this group, and we still are. We're going this weekend. It's another party in Orlando, although she's only doing them once a month now until she builds up more numbers after the COVID shutdown.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Mm-hmm. And so what did the trajectory look like? Pam, you kind of said like you tried the dating websites, didn't really do it for you, but you're more interested in just sort of the casual aspect.
Yeah.
But like,
Jim was in charge of like meeting people, so he got on SLS, and we started swinging. We just started getting together with other couples, and most of the time it was like I'd be with the guy in one room and he'd be with the woman in another room, but sometimes it was all of us in the same room. But it was always like, quote, together. I mean, we were in the same space, maybe not in the same room. And we were doing that probably once to 3 times a week.
Yeah, we lucked out. We were at a play venue, a swingers venue, at a 6,000 square foot house with 6 or 8 bedrooms and group rooms and an indoor pool and they called it the tree house because they had two playrooms up in a tree, like a true tree house. Anyway, and we were in the pool and we were talking to a fellow that was there, and he says, we have a swingers group that you might want to become a member of. And he says, it's just a big email list. You give me your email and I'll submit it and you'll get an invitation. Weekly, we meet at restaurants, local restaurants. I mean, in civilian clothes.
So almost every Sunday thereafter, again, break for COVID, but we were going to meals where there could be anywhere from 6 couples to 20 couples, depending on the time of year.
Wow.
And they're just the meet and greets.
Yeah,
basically meet and greets, And you can hug and kiss the people you've already played with. You can meet the newcomers. You have time to schedule play dates for the upcoming weeks. It's very convenient. No play at the party other than normal hugging and kissing, maybe.
Sure.
Greeting type hugs and kisses. And that was so we still do it, and it's still a major way that we get connected with other swinger couples.
Yeah.
And they range in age from 45 on up to my age. I don't think there's anyone older than me.
No, I don't think so.
That's amazing. It's so fun that you two found each other, and then found this activity that you love doing together, that so much that you're doing it like 3 to 5 times a week. And
not so much now, but I mean, like pre-COVID, it was that active.
Yeah.
Sure.
And
sure.
now, we're building back up again, but
taking it slow.
Yeah.
Well, we're a little bit more selective now too, because in previous swinging with people that we'd meet, Pam had to take one for the team a number of times.
Sure. And so I guess like through this journey, well, actually before that, so I'm curious, Jim, you mentioned that you've had both male and female partners. Do you mind talking a little bit about like the exploration of your sexuality and when that entered into the picture for you?
Yeah, because I was going to ask a similar question.
How long a story do you want?
Well, all of this started after my late wife died in 2016. I waited a full year before I socialized with anybody, and I knew a lot of women in town because I was a member of the art guild, and I did some photography that I sold, and we ran an art. I managed an art gallery and all that for them. But so I knew a lot of women, and I started dating one of them. Happened to be my late wife's art teacher, and we got into friend with benefits type arrangement for probably a full year, and it was when we started to get together. I still was suffering from ED, and I went with her to my urologist, and my urologist retired, and a new one came on board, and she said, Jim, I can solve your problem, but we're going to have to go through a couple steps at a time. And she did. And the short of the story was she recommended a penile implant. Well, my friends with benefits would go to every session, but she was she was invested in this. And so I think I got my implant in January of 2018, and we just went off. She was just a couple of years younger than me, and we used to laugh and laugh as we fucking every day. And it was we're going to die this way. Wouldn't it be great? Don't you want to die in bed? And ultimately, she even became a nudist. I joined a nudist resort. And she became a nudist with me. She was a little reluctant. She had some body issues, but she was a little reluctant. But she joined in, and I finally decided I was going to move to Florida because I wanted to be nudist year round. And she was not in a position where she could move. She had her art teaching business. She had children and grandchildren back in Kentucky, and so I left her, and unfortunately, she died within the last year. But at one point, I was pretty much normal heterosexual. In 2017, I was living in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, and that was the year of the great solar eclipse in 2017 that came across the U.S. from the Pacific Northwest down to the Southeast. And Hopkinsville happened to be the epicenter of the longest duration of the darkness. It was over 2 minutes. And so the little town of 30,000 people that weekend grew to about 150,000 people from all over the world, from Russia, from Asia, from South America. NASA was there. I mean, all the networks were there. It was just a hopping place. And I had just got in touch with a fella that I had not seen for 20 years or so. And he was, I played tennis with him. When I practiced law, I played a lot of tennis, and he was one of my tennis partners. And I connected with him on Facebook, and I said, you got to come to Hopkinsville. He had retired, was living in Maryland, and he and his wife came, and we just had a great time for a few days. And I said, I got to go visit you in Maryland now. So a month or two later, I went up there. And while I was visiting him, the first night I got there, his wife wasn't feeling too well. She went upstairs to go to bed early, and we were sitting in the kitchen drinking at a kitchen bar. And I said, I joined a nudist resort, Mike. And he says, you did? He says, I'm a nudist too. He says, I go to a gay nudist resort. I did not know that Mike was gay. and he never told anyone, and he told me, and I just felt emotionally overwhelmed because we were very close friends 20 years before. And he told me, he says, you don't know how many times I saw you in the locker room and I wanted to get intimate with you, but he wasn't going to come out at that time. And he never did until I went and visited him, and we were alone. And so his wife was going to an art workshop the next day, all day long in a nearby town, and says, let's just get naked and hang around the house, which we did. And one thing led to another. We ended up in bed, and I lost my anal virginity that day. and ever since I thought, boy, this bisexual, this sex with men is pretty darn neat, you know. And it just opened up my mind, and I've been bisexual ever since. So And I,
yeah, which like in retro, like it hasn't been that long,
no,
right? Like
I didn't bloom until I was 78 years old or something like that.
Wow, that's amazing. That's
amazing.
Of
catching up to do. See,
you got a lot of catching up to do. It doesn't sound like you're hurting for experiences, Jim. I was curious. Did In if you're not comfortable sharing, that's okay. Did Mike's wife know that he went to
No. And as a matter of fact, he came out to her about a year later. We FaceTimed on a computer because we lived such a distance apart. And he came out to her. Actually, she found some nude pictures of other guys on his computer. And so his hand was forced, and he came out to her, and she was absolutely devastated. They've been going together since they were teenagers. And
Wow.
they have 2 children, and both adult children with grandchildren now, and she did not know. And I urged him to come out to her, and he did, not because I urged him, but his hand was called, and he had, and shortly after he came out to her, he developed leukemia, and he passed away within a couple months after that. So,
Oh, wow.
I still see her on Facebook now and then. She's still living in the same place and doing great artwork that she does. And but no, it was very emotional for me because I went there and I thought, Mike, we were very close friends when we played tennis 20 years ago. I want to be a close friend with you again, even if we're living at a distance, and to have a close male buddy that you can really talk with. And and he agreed, but then he got leukemia and went pretty quickly after that.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, and thank you for sharing a little bit about that. That's a pretty amazing thing to sort of discover your bisexuality at the age of 78, 79. That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that took, oh, go ahead, Emma.
So that took you to Florida, and that's when you said you moved into a nudist resort, and doing that is what from what you said, really let you blossom, I guess, let you try a lot of different things.
I hit on all the widow women in my neighborhood, and I never got to third base with any of them, but then I met Pam and things changed.
She's a good luck charm.
I already had my relationships with the gal that I met at Club Relate, at the orgies, and Tony, my male lover. So I had sexual relationships established by the time I met Pam. They were fairly short term. Both of them started up less than 2 months before I met Pam. So
okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and so throughout this journey, I guess it's been a couple of years now together. Like how have you sort of seen each other grow through this experience, and knowing that like you really kind of launched this experience almost at the same time together, and you didn't really know each other before it. So you don't have a whole lot of frame of reference of like who was Pam for the first 65 years of her life, or who was Jim for the first 80. So like but in just this short time that you've been together, how have you seen like changes you've seen in each other?
Well, I can tell you what changes I've seen in Pam. Pam is initially was quite hesitant to ask for her needs to be fulfilled. She was in I can't say she's shy, but she just did not feel comfortable asking for things, asking to be pleasured in a certain way, or feeling free to do whatever she wanted when she wanted with other people, sexually or otherwise. And I encouraged her. I kept telling her, "You're a goddess, and you need to be worshipped, and just act like a goddess. Fake it until you make it." type of attitude. And I've seen her come a long ways in that regard. She's blossomed into a real slut. So
I'm proud of it.
Yeah, in a beautiful way.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, we both obviously read The Ethical Slut, and since then we proudly say that we're both
right. Yes, you should. You should.
For me, about Jim, I guess I have to I don't know, tangent a little bit. Along the way, he came to me with a working penile implant, but along the way in our relationship, about a year and a half in, actually once COVID had also hit, it broke. And so we had like 3-4 months of no PIV, no penetrative sex. And And along the way, since then, I'll come back to that. But in the year and a half since that first time, I actually recorded the surgeries. He's gone through 3 different surgeries. So there have been huge hunks of time where he has not been able to perform the way he wanted to be able to perform. But it actually made him a better lover, because he had to figure out what he could do for me to please me and take care of me and honor me as the goddess, without that part of the functioning. I mean, without the penetrative sex, and vice versa. I had to figure out what to do also, like, what do you do with a man that part doesn't work? So we've had a lot. We actually, I guess I can share this. Every single morning, we actually make love. And we did it throughout the whole time when he, quote, couldn't do some things. But we took turns pleasuring each other. And we still take turns pleasuring each other, but we could take it to the extreme now. But he actually, he figured out how to use his masculinity in different ways.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. And I guess, Jim, from your standpoint, do you mind talking about that exploration a little bit for you?
No, I am very glad to talk about it. Pam discovered that I like textures. I like different types of textures on my skin, whether it's silky or nylon or rayon or whatever, or whether it's scratchy type stuff. And so she has a closet full of different cloth swaths that I'm usually got my eyes closed moaning, and she's just going over my body with all these different textures, including vampire gloves with leather gloves with little pins in them, and Wartenberg pinwheels and all that type stuff too. So I never had anyone do that to me before with textures and just make my whole body just shimmer. And I'm not ticklish, but it feels like it's being tickled all over. And so she's developed that art very, very well. We're both anally inclined, and Pam learned to. She got. We bought a harness, and she pegs me fairly regularly, and I enjoy it. I look forward to it. I do have a feminine side, and I do cross dress, so not in public, but mostly lingerie and that. I do that mostly at the orgies. I feel I can do anything I want at an orgy. People of every gender, every place on the gender spectrum and lifestyle. They're just kinky all over the place, but I get attention coming in nylons and bras and high heels and and a wig and all that, and so I do like that, and that plays into the pegging. So somebody that so we've developed some of that. We've been struggling a little bit. We both want to get into more kink, and we do belong to a private dungeon here in the Tampa area, but we haven't really. We haven't been creative enough to come up with scenes to do at the dungeon. What we need somebody to script it for us, I guess. we need a kink coach.
Yeah.
Well, if anyone's listening, has any ideas,
choreographer. Yeah, that's amazing, and I appreciate you both sharing that, and how it's really cool that you took sort of what could be seen as a negative, right? We can't do this thing for such amount of time, and you spun it into something that expanded your repertoire, and I think that's amazing.
Yeah, I think it's powerful because it's very common, right, at different stages of life to have different health issues, both for everyone, and sometimes PIV is just not an option, but you can still pleasure each other and find connection and intimacy in other ways. You just have to be a little creative about it. And I think that's really inspiring. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, it did also lead to quite an inventory of sex toys that we became.
Oh, I bet. I bet.
Just an anecdote to that. Since we each have a home close to each other, and sometimes we play at my house and sometimes we play here. Carrying all the sex toys back and forth can be a problem. I started off with a leather doctor's bag. Well, that wasn't big enough. We outgrew that. So now I have a big acoustic guitar case, and I have all of them in a. People ask, "Oh, I didn't know you played guitar."
I don't.
Pretty soon you're going to have a wagon. You're going to have to install wheels on it so you can.
I'm thinking of putting wheels on the guitar case. It's kind of heavy.
I'll get a big bass cello case. Put wheels
on. Right? Wheels on it.
Amazing.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's incredible. Have there been other challenges that you've? I mean, this is a challenge that you've overcome. Has there been other challenges in your relationship over the last few years?
Yeah. Because Jim came to me poly and had poly partners, in his mind, he had a different understanding of what might ensue. And when he had no longer had the two partners, he decided he'd like to find more. But in my opinion, didn't go about it in an open and responsible and thoughtful fashion. So he actually made a date with somebody, and I knew that she existed, but that was it. And we never talked about the date. We never talked about what it would look like. And when I asked questions, he was kind of defensive about it. And so there was a big chunk of time there, and we're still recovering, but I think we are on the other side of it, where he needed to allow me to take baby steps in this process. And I needed to know before the date and before the things happened that they were going to happen. Mm-hmm. And so that was a trying time.
Yeah.
And there's just in that regard, the gal I made a date with, Pam and I enjoyed dinner and a night with her on my patio in front of a fire last night. So we're all friends. We're all friends now. And I'm not sexual with her, so
right.
Yeah.
It's more of a platonic friendship.
Yeah.
No, and it's super, I think it's super valuable to think about that. Like, you both arrived at the relationship seemingly thinking you were on the same page, but ultimately discovering you weren't really, and then having to recalibrate, adjust that, and then come back in it together. And I know that can be a really tricky thing to do. So I think it's impressive that you two were able to maneuver that.
Well, I think it very much triggered his independence, being in control, all of that kind of
relationship
stuff.
Anarchy,
and he immediately went to, well, you're just trying to close the relationship. You're just trying to do all these things that I had no intention of doing. But, we were hitting each other, hitting brick walls because he couldn't hear what I needed. Mm-hmm. And it actually took us breaking up for 2 weeks for him to listen.
Yeah.
Getting being on the same page earlier in our relationship, we had decided that we knew we were not going to get married. We'd been married enough times, and we really didn't need it. It'd be disadvantageous for us economically to get married. So but we said, what are we going to call ourselves? And we decided life partners would be the best description. And instead of getting a ring, we got matching bracelets, and things like that. So, so that went on fine. We were calling ourselves life partners, but about 6 months into that, we discovered that we had different definitions of what a life partner meant. and Pam's definition of life partner was it's a partner for the rest of your life. And that would be what most people would think. In my mind, it was you were a partner in every aspect of life without having a duration to it. Because I figured, hey, between us, we've been married 7 times. We know that relationships don't last forever, So I didn't think in terms of for the rest of our lives, to death do us part. So I thought we'd share everything rather than put a direct. Well, we went back and forth on that and spoke to a counselor about it and all that, and I think we ended up compromising by saying we're going to be life partners in everything we do for the rest of our life.
So you took them each and combined it. I love it.
Well, for some reason, and I don't know, have you dropped this issue in your head?
Yeah.
When I told him I felt I needed a commitment, he read that to mean that means I can't love anybody else. And that didn't mean that to me. I just wanted a commitment. He was still allowed, quote unquote. I mean, I don't feel like I allow him to do anything. He's allowed to do what he wants, but it's always, it's still okay with me that he find another male and female partner if that's what he needs. But I just need to be well informed along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have more of a need for long-term partners, multiple long-term partners. And Pam doesn't have that need, apparently. Maybe she will at some time. And
you never know.
I'll applaud when she does.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing all of that as well. It just highlights that, we're all still figuring it out, right? We're always, trying our best, and sometimes we still got to figure stuff out, and we're all human. Yeah. So, yeah.
And as I think I've mentioned before on the meet and greets and other Zoom interactions, that we live in a pretty open-minded community down here in the Tampa Bay area. There's a lot of different lifestylers down here, and probably we're the epicenter of the nudist community. But Clearwater and St. Petersburg is the epicenter of the kink industry, the kink community, rather. There's more kinksters there. And so it's just interesting, the people you meet down here. And we belong to some other support. We belong to a couple polyamory support groups. One is pure discussion, and the other is more social interactions. And we get a lot out of them. And they're beginning to meet face to face again, which is good. And so we have a lot of people that we can bounce our issues off of.
Yeah, you have a community.
Yeah. Exactly. We do. We do.
The other thing I wanted to mention along the way, and I think it was you, Emma, that put me in touch with the multi-amory group. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it was one of theirs or one of what podcast it was, but when we broke up, there was a podcast about breaking up. And it's an excellent podcast, even if you're not going to break up. But it also talked about relationship agreements. And I think it came from that one. And so we have actually begun the process of creating a relationship agreement around the poly part. And I think a lot of it's actually just as good for monogamous people. I mean, there are certain unique things that certainly belong to poly, but it's just an agreement about how we will be with each other. And we're still in the midst of writing it and working through it. And as part of that, we also are meeting every month, once a month on the first Sunday of every month, to say, what's gone well, what hasn't gone so well, what do we need to do different. And it seems like things that we may not be able to talk about in our everyday life that would trigger each other and escalate and get crazy, if we do it in the setting of that meeting, we're able to listen differently.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that was the radar, multi-amory's radar
we use
method that we
as
sent you.
we use that kind of as setting the agenda for our meetings. And I think I sent you the link on the written relationship agreement that came from somewhere in San Diego non-monogamous group.
Yeah, we'll include links to those in the show notes. And I think there might have been a breakup episode by Multi-Amory as well, but there were also, I think I sent you the one, we had a Focus Friday episode with Libby Simbach a few years back. And that was about transitioning relationships. Right. And so we'll include links to all of that in the show notes. But thank you for mentioning that as well. It's the radar method is of like basically monthly check-ins and kind of a process to that is powerful and important in any type of relationships, not just non-monogamous relationships.
It makes so much sense to us.
Well, and after, I don't even remember what the TIFF was, but we had a big triggering event, and I said, you know what? Can I call a meeting, please? Because I knew that we worked better at talking in that kind of a setting.
Yeah, it was the mindset. Yeah.
So we had an interim meeting.
Yeah,
helped a lot.
Yeah, I love that framework worked so well.
Yeah,
and that you can even call it impromptu, and it just changes your mindset enough that you can get to where you can hear each other. So I think that's really great. I was curious. So you two both have had a lot of relationship experience and a lot of life experience. So you both sort of came into non-monogamy very late in the game. I mean, you've both had some little experiences, years ago, but really you're kind of living your best lives. And I'm just curious, looking back, do you sometimes wonder, or wish, man, I wish I had discovered this 60 years ago or 50 years ago? Or is it I don't think I would have been able to do this then. I found it at the right time.
I think for me, absolutely, it was at the right time.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have been open enough to become even more open as we have. And that's one of the things somebody has asked me lots, what does the orgy do for you? And it's like completely opening. You can't go to an orgy and enjoy yourself if you're not going to let yourself be out there.
Yeah.
And our whole relationship is really about being out there.
Yeah. So what do you think though, Pam, what do you think shifted along the way that allowed you to be open to all of this when Jim brought it up versus Pam, whoever, 10 years ago, maybe wouldn't have been able to walk away from that lunch with Jim being like, yeah, I think I could do that.
When my late husband died, which was 10 years ago in just a couple more weeks, actually, as I was recovering from the grief, I journaled a lot. And one of the things that I repeated it time and time and time again is it's my turn for the next 20 years. And I think this is just part of being my turn.
Yeah.
I met my late wife in 1998 and we got married in 2000. And at the time I met her and the time we got married, she had multiple sclerosis, and it was the chronic progressive type. And she was using a walker at the time. And by the time she died, she was in a power wheelchair and could not transfer herself. So I was aware of her disease being progressive all during the whole marriage. And at one point, I think after 5 years into the marriage, when she was having some real problems where it made even penetrative sex almost unbearable for her. I asked her, I said, can I I didn't use the word hall pass, but could I have, get sex from a sex worker or from anybody? And she says, no, I don't want you to do that. And I honored that. But it was on my mind at that time under the circumstances, because I knew and so I had a long celibate period, probably for the last 6 years of our marriage, where there was no sex. There was cuddling, there was kissing, there was stroking and all that, but no penetrative sex whatsoever. And I just it was not on my mind at that time. And when I was practicing law, I could have never afforded to take the risk of an open lifestyle. I would be crucified if anyone in the bar association knew that. The word would get around, and I'd be ad hominem attacked in the courtroom, in front of a jury, and then it would just impact. I couldn't do it. So no, for me, I just couldn't do it earlier in life until I retired and until I got into when I lived in Kentucky. I sought counseling because of my wife's death, and I also sought counseling because of my newfound bisexuality. And I had a counselor and I talked to her, and I said, "What?" I said, "I just joined a nudist resort, and I can't be open about that down here." And I said, "I'm thinking of moving to a nudist resort in Florida." And she counseled me on it. She says, "You better, because you're never going to find any community in this part of the country. It's Bible Belt, and you're just not going to find it." So she encouraged me, and at that point, that's why I said I got the green light. I got my professional green light to go ahead and do what I wanted to do now, and so that's been my what's been on my mind ever since. I'm retired. I don't have anything at stake. My income is not going to be affected if the whole world knew that I was open and non-monogamous. It's not going to affect my income.
And I want to go back to one more thing because of what Jim said earlier about telling me I was the goddess. Mm-hmm. He has really helped me take that on fully. And at one of the orgy, early on, we have a dinner beforehand. I asked one of the women, actually the woman that he first went there with, how do you just completely open up and be able to meet all these people for the first time and get in bed with them? And she said, "Be the goddess." And it was I can relate to that. So allowing myself to be fully in goddess mode, not just sexually, but, in all ways of life in terms of what I deserve. I think that has definitely helped open the whole non-monogamy world.
And she's earned that title there because normally the orgies last for about 4 hours and people take a break in the middle and go get something to eat and snacks and beverages. And Pam doesn't take a break. She's just 4 hours straight. You might change beds, but it's
Oh, Pam, living your best life. I don't know what else to say. I love it. I'm curious, Jim. Sorry, did you have a question?
And I'll ask it after.
I'm curious, Jim, being a bisexual, or I think you've even described yourself as pansexual in some of our other comments.
My female poly partner was a transgender woman. Post-op, she had her gender reassignment surgeries in 2014. So, she was all woman, but she still identified as a transgender person. And so I use pansexual in deference to her.
Sure. Sure. Well, and so being at, discovering this at age 78, 79, how is that accepted in sort of your community, both in the nudist resorts and also in the orgy setting, where you're also with other people who are in their, you said 40s up to 80, like I know that like maybe it's not quite as progressive or maybe not quite as accepted in that generation. And how have you sort of found yourself in that?
In the nudist resort that we're in now, it's a family nudist resort, and so alternative lifestyles are not condoned in the open. I mean, you can't be aroused around the pool, because there's children in the pool. And
of course,
the resort where I live, no children are allowed in the resort. You got to be 21, and it's a lifestyle resort, and they promote it. They provide rooms for you to go have sex in, and group sex, and even so, they promote it. So it's different in the different resorts, but I don't find I find that a good number of men that I meet online, I get confused. I always have to clarify it because in their profiles, they'll say they're straight, and then they privately message you and they said, "Hey, I'd like to get together with you, big boy." I said, "Wait, what is it? Come on, be authentic." And a lot of them say they're straight when they're either bi-curious or bi. But at the orgies, when I first started going, there were a number of heterosexual couples and individuals that were they would kind of shun away from any guy that was bi, and the guys that were bi there would have to wait to the very end of the orgy to play with each other. I've kind of pushed the envelope on that, and now the hostess who's been running these for over 30 years, she sees the change now, and she supports it, and she says, "Don't hold back until the end of the orgy. Get out there, and so I do. But the majority of guys are still straight, and I kid them about it, and they said, "Well, don't get behind me," and all that. Like I'm going to push myself on them.
Yeah.
But
I also am bi, not as demonstratively, perhaps, or not as experienced.
Sure.
But I think I'm more than bi-curious and do enjoy, I guess, more both the orgies and even in some of our play dates. If the woman is open, we play with each other sometimes. So.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I love that you both sort of discovered that at your age and are now not only discovered it, embrace it and can explore it and are so supportive of one another in that exploration. So I just think that's beautiful.
Yeah. And speaking of the orgies and just all the playtime, you don't have to worry as much at your age about pregnancy, but you do have to worry about STIs. And I was curious how you two protect yourselves and navigate that.
Being in Medicare, we can get tested free. And actually, before we realized that, we were going to the health department, and they also tested at like $40 or something very reasonable. But the way we've got it going now, because since COVID, the health department's not really doing it.
They're too busy with COVID.
Each of our main doctors puts blood work through automatically every 6 months. And because we're whopper-jawed on the appointments, one of us is generally being tested every 3 to 4 months. So if one of us is clean, it probably means we both are. But, that's how we do it, is that we just use the system and go through the testing.
For penetrative sex, Pam and I are bareback with each other, but we insist on condoms with everyone else for vaginal and anal sex. So we don't go to that extreme with oral, but
yeah, that's your personal choice. That everyone has their own personal.
It's too inconvenient. Too inconvenient. But we do draw a pretty strong line, because there are a lot of people that say, we want to be bareback only, and
go find somebody else.
Then we're not for you. We're not for you.
Yeah. And you did say earlier too, you started being a little more selective as well, like getting to know the people sometimes a little bit more. Yeah.
Well, I think COVID helped with that too.
Yeah, COVID helps.
Without a doubt. And so we know you both listen to the show fairly regularly.
Yeah.
And so
I know
you're
where you're
no
going.
stranger to the blooper question, not necessarily related to sexual health and safety, but just have you come across any moments that would be worth sharing that are worth a laugh?
This is a little tiny one, but because we are nudists, we had, Jim was during one of his recovery phases, so we had one of the couples that we've played with over for an evening of just getting together, and they walked in the house and we're nude, and she said to both of us, I guess at once, "Huh? I thought we weren't playing." And I said, "Well, why?" And she says, "Well, you're nude." I said, "We're nudists. We get nude not just to play."
And they knew that because they lived in the nudist resort
too. So,
but anyway.
cute little ditty.
Yeah. I don't know it's not a blooper, but it's a real throwback to teenage times. But when COVID finally eased up and people were getting their vaccinations, I got together with my poly lover, who's a transgender woman. She one of the things I really like about her is she's 6'2" tall, and I'm 6 feet tall, so I got to stand on my tippy toes to kiss her. But anyway,
and I'm 5'2".
we met up. We met up. You weren't with us, but
you met with Tony and
my two poly lovers and I got together at a restaurant in a town midway between us, and Tony went on his way, and Chelsea and I went got in my car, and I drive a Tesla, and it's the Model 3. It's not a real big Tesla, but the seats do go all the way back. And she's 6'2". We managed to get it on in the front seat of a Tesla, and the windows were all fogged. We were in the parking lot. Headlights are going by us. And I thought, oh my God, what are we doing? They're going to, Anyway, we didn't get caught, but it was fun. But it wasn't a blooper, but we were laughing our asses off at each other.
Feeling like a teenager.
Yeah.
I'm in awe and inspired by your zest for both of your zests for life at this, and it's been super fun and exciting to talk to you both. Is there anything we haven't asked you about or talked about that you feel needs to be heard by the world before we let you get your clothes off and get back out there into the 90-degree weather?
The only thing I thought of is, how in real estate they say the most important thing is location, location, location. When we were having some of our issues, I said to Jim, "So what's the most important part of how we need to be?" And he said, "Communication, communication, communication." And, like that is just, it's so important to not stop talking. And he gets so sick of unpacking, but I make him do it anyway.
Well, he's got orgies to get to, Pam. Quit holding them up.
Yeah, but he's to get, you got to talk to get to the orgy.
No, I'm on team communication here. I'm just kidding.
I know.
Well, thank you for that addition. Is there anything else? And then we can let you get out of those pesky clothes and back out in the sunshine.
We have to get back into them because we're on a Zoom tonight, I think.
All right. We're going to see you again later.
That's
yes,
true.
We have a virtual meet and greet tonight.
Virtual meet and greet tonight. So that's exciting. And for anyone listening, tonight might not actually be tonight.
Right.
So so be aware, tonight might not actually be a virtual meet and greet.
So go to our website and check when the next virtual meet and greet is.
Sorry about that.
Wow. Well,
it's all good.
Thank you both for first of all being a part of our community and the Patreon community. And we've met you a few times in person in various cities around the country, and it's always a joy. And so thank you both for coming on, sharing your story, and just everything you do for us and the community. We appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much.
We look forward to being with you guys.
Yes. Well, we're excited to talk to you later tonight, and we will talk to you soon. So have a great day.
You
Thank
too.
you.
And we're back. A huge thank you to Jim and Pam for coming on the show and sharing your story. It was wonderful to talk to you, and we're so excited to get this out there.
Yeah, I will also say that, we don't have confirmation on this, but there's a pretty good chance Pam and Jim will be on the virtual trivia and on the virtual meet and greet this coming weekend. So if you want to meet the stars themselves, join us.
Yes.
More information about that can be found on our website under the community events tab. We hope to see you there.
And also, while you're on our website, go check out our Patreon community. Again, all right there. And we'd love to have you join us. So go check it out.
And you can meet Pam and Jim there too.
Right.
They're everywhere.
Lots of opportunities to meet Pam and Jim.
And the other thing we wanted to talk about really quick was our New Orleans trip. We teased this in the intro, and then you stuck around this entire time just to hear this. So the weekend of September 17th, we are going to be in New Orleans, Louisiana.
Yes.
In case anyone was...
Just in case that wasn't clear.
So on Saturday morning, we have a high ropes course. We're doing a high ropes challenge that's open to about 30 people or so.
Yep.
And then that night, we're doing a different event. It is a clothing optional pool party that was actually going to be this past February, but it got canceled because of COVID. It got rescheduled because of COVID. And so Saturday in the morning is high ropes. In the evening is a clothing optional pool party, private pool party. Mm-hmm. And then the day before on Friday, we're going to put together a meet and greet with hopefully some acro burlesque performers.
Hopefully.
And then the day after, so on Sunday, we have Jello wrestling.
Yes.
So Jello wrestling, what you need to know about Jello wrestling right now is it's amazing, it's awesome, and there's not a way to sign up at the moment. We have an episode coming out in a few weeks with the person who is the host and creator of the New Orleans Jello wrestling scene. And so we're super excited about that, and more information will come in on this. But the real reason we're telling you this is so you can block off the weekend of September 17th and get your ass to New Orleans.
Yes, because it's going to be a whole weekend with lots of events.
Yes. So we will be there. We hope you're there. Pam and Jim might be there.
We don't know.
Well, they were there the last time we went. They actually tried to come to the event, and then we postponed it, and then they showed up anyway. So anyway, Pam and Jim are everywhere is sort of the moral of the story of this episode.
Oh, boy. Anyway, this coming Friday, we have a special episode coming out, another Focus Friday episode. And this time, it's all about the power of play. And we interview Gary, who is a strategic play consultant. And it's a fantastic conversation about bringing play back into your relationships.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one and always happy to collaborate with Gary. So thank you in advance to Gary, and we will see you all on Friday.
And then next week...
Hold on, we'll also see him Friday night, I believe.
Yes, Friday night we have trivia.
And then Saturday?
We have a meet and greet. So there's lots of opportunities.
I mean, we're everywhere. We're everywhere. Pam and Jim are everywhere.
And next Wednesday, we have another interview for you. This time it's with Miche. She is a coach with Expansive Connection. And come back and find out more next week.
I would say she's much more than a coach for Expansive Connection.
Oh, yeah, that's very true. I didn't mean that to come across. That's all she is.
That's all she is. Boiled her down to one little title.
No.
It's a fantastic conversation. We will see everybody in a week.
Yes. Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening.